Good evening, everybody. We have a special episode tonight. I'm very pleased to welcome legendary executive producer of film and television, Miss Tracey Baker-Simmons. We are going to get Tracey into the room, and we're going to be, I'm sure, illuminated by the conversation. What's up, Nenny? What's up, one and only me? What's up, Pocket? Welcome, everybody, tonight.
Hello.
Hey!
Give me 1 second. I'm getting here.
All right, all right.
I'm going to turn some lights on. Hold on.
All right.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Of course, of course.
It's such an honor to have you on, Tracey. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you on, and what it means to get, your knowledge, and
Thank you.
yeah, no doubt. Everybody, we have been joined by multi-hyphenate executive producer of television as well as film, educator, professor, curator of a course that we're going to talk about a little later, teaching how to conceive of and package and deliver reality TV. You have done so many things. Can you just start by telling us who is Tracey Baker-Simmons?
Well, first of all, I'm a little girl from Tennessee.
Yep.
So I grew up in Chattanooga and lived in Atlanta for many years in two different iterations. And I've lived in LA. I'm also a mom. I have a son who's turning 30 this year. So
Okay.
that's a new phase of my life. I'm married, so I'm a wife of we've been married almost 18 years now, and I'm also a film and television producer because I do actually do both. I started in music, working in the music industry, and then music videos and commercials. Transitioned into the reality space. I've done independent film. I did a Christmas movie last year,
Mm-hmm.
Hallmark Channel. I've done a biopic, and so I am. I direct sometimes,
Okay.
but not that. That's. I don't say I don't like it, but it isn't something that I've dealt. Like I do it as a necessity, but I'm actually doing it more lately. And honestly, but what at the core of who I am is really an executive producer, which is a person who, sees the big picture and the vision for the project and puts everyone in position to be able to succeed at helping us bring that vision to the screen.
Okay. I love it. Tracey, can you take us back for those that don't know? And I found out just kind of incidentally that we are from adjacent neighborhoods in Chattanooga. We're from
Oh,
Highway 58. Did you go to Lakeside?
I went to Lakeside Elementary. Yes, I did.
Okay, as did I.
And then I went to Brown Middle School and Central High School.
Okay. Little black girl from Chattanooga who has risen to the top of several professions. Who were your most formative influences as a child?
I would say my grandmother first and foremost because she was just like a very proud. She was from Georgia, so she was a little old Southern black lady who actually cleaned, people's homes. She was a day worker, I guess that's what they called it. But she was a very proud, confident person. Her father was born into slavery,
Get
but
out.
she told me that, most importantly, he made sure that all his kids could read and write. His girls never picked cotton because that was just a big thing for him. he And so basically, and my grandmother was just very education was really, really important. and most of all, being proud of who you were, just, confident in your own skin. And my mom was just very, very supportive of just, that, like making sure her kids were educated and just supporting us and loving us. And, I often, my mother wasn't highly educated. So I'm often very surprised at how she navigated having 5 kids, and we all have degrees and all of these things. And it was all very, very important to her. So sometimes it's not what you have, but it's what you want to give and
Right.
want to see happen for the next generation. So I really like hold that near and dear. And she definitely, taught us good work ethics and things like that. So growing up, and my mom listened too. Like my elementary school teacher, I'll never forget, Miss Sims, who was Sam Sims' mom.
Geraldine Sims. She taught
Yeah.
me too. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Best English teacher ever.
Yeah, she was probably, if you want to say like a pivotal like she told my mom that I needed to go to Brown Middle School and to Central, because she was like, what she needs is not going to be in the system, and for her to be her best, this is what you need to do. And my mother listened, and we did that, and I'm sure that made a big difference, and it was pivotal in my life, and just my um and then I remember in high school there was a lady named Miss Stone. I think she passed recently, but she was my history teacher. And I remember she said, you could choose one or the other. You could be the woman behind the man that's getting it done, or you could just be the woman getting it. My
It's okay.
clock was saying, your your social media limit is up for today. So, but I said, and I was like, well, I don't want to be that person. And she said, okay, well, just always remember that. So I would say, like, they're, educators are very, they play a big role, because they can make you feel anything is possible, or they can make you feel like nothing is possible, or that you don't have what it takes to do it. So I do, and education is like very valuable, and I love teaching because I love learning. And so I do think that that all stems from these people that were in my life that were educators that really made a big difference. Just a one conversation impacted me
Right.
for a lifetime. Even in college, I remember um, one of my professors said, you have a choice now. It was my senior year. And he said, you could have a job or a career. And a job is just something you wake up and you go do it. And yes, you'll be able to feed your family.
Hmm.
Or a career, which is something you could be very passionate about and make a difference and use all your gifts and talents. And I remember leaving school really looking for that thing that would make me feel that way, as opposed to just something that was going to help me feed my family.
Okay. Where'd you go to undergrad? And what
I
did you
went to
major in?
Oh, I went to Memphis State, which is now University of Memphis, and I majored in finance and marketing. I was,
Okay.
but I was always an avid reader, and I always loved story. I worked in high school. I was the editor of the newspaper, and then in college, I worked my way up to be an editor of that paper. So I love literature. I love history. My mother allowed me to spend many, many, many hours of my childhood in the library downtown Chattanooga.
Yes.
And so I think that, I learned later in life from a psychologist that reading so many books and, about so many other worlds, like even J.R. Tolkien and all those kind of things, it opens your mind, it expands your mind. So reading became something that was near and dear to me. And so I've been, very intentional about that. And but yeah, I was a big reader, loved story. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I got bit by the entertainment bug, but it wasn't a dream of mine. Honestly, I thought that I would probably go into politics.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
I wanted to be the mayor of Atlanta because of Maynard Jackson.
Right, right.
I was
No
like, I
doubt.
did it. Yes, it's possible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Tracey, listen. So I just have to ask, you were at Memphis State when Penny was there, right?
Hmm.
Oh man. Oh
So he was like, he was young. He's younger than I am. So
yeah.
I was there. So one of my closest friends, God, why did I lose his name? But Penny was like younger than us, like Andre Turner, and those
Mm,
were the upperclassmen. And then Elliot Perry and I, we went through college together. Like we graduated
okay.
together. He was like one of my close friends in school.
Okay. You moved to Atlanta, and part of your origin story that I really love, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were waitressing at Houston's. Is that right?
Yes,
The,
yeah.
the, the one on Peachtree down from Piedmont Hospital?
No, so I was waitressing at the one at Lennox across
Okay.
the mall. Hmm.
On
I
Lenox
don't
Road.
know the one. See, this how old I am. I don't even think they had that one on Peachtree yet.
Wow. That's crazy.
Because
That's crazy.
and they had the one off of 75. Peachtree is the last one they built.
Dang. So
Mm.
can you tell us, how did you go from waitressing into transitioning into the music industry?
So I was only waitressing because, like, I did that through college, right? So then I graduated. Position is everything, you know. People will say, you know, location, 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 right? And so remember, I had a finance degree, and that particular Houston's is in the middle of the finance district in Atlanta. So my plan was, I had my resume, and I was going to meet someone, and I was going to get a job in finance because I had turned down pharmaceutical jobs, because I was like, that sounds a little intense, and I'm a good tester, so I think you guys get confused because I could pass all these tests that I want to do this thing. I don't want to do this thing. I just could pass the test.
Right.
So basically, I was like, I'll just go waitress for a minute, and I'll meet somebody, and I'll get a job. I'll get a real job. And so I was there, and I actually met LA and Babyface, and I also ended, and that segued into me being able to meet a man named Dale Hill from Warner Brothers, who actually was like, you can intern, and then that turned into work. And then ultimately, once I left there, I worked there with him in marketing and promotions. And then once I left there to have my son, some people started reaching out about my relationships with artists and things like that, which segued me into producing music videos. And then that built to being able to produce commercials. And then basically that pushed the whole trajectory of my career as a producer.
Okay. What was that initial conversation with Ellie and Face like that convinced you to step out on faith?
On faith, yeah.
On faith.
Well, it was an interesting thing because I think they were intrigued because I didn't know who they were. So they
What?
were,
Okay, okay.
I was like, what's this company? I looked at their credit card and I said, are y'all hiring in marketing? And then they were just like, are you a unicorn? Like, how do you not know who we are?
Dang.
It's like, I just didn't know. It was like their real names and whatever. And basically, it really was just them like, do you know anything about the business? And I was like, no, but what is there to know? And they suggested I read a book called Hitmen, and I did. And at that time, we had they had two big publications, Billboard and R&R. And they were like, read that. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to like, they invited me to a studio session, like, and I actually met TLC,
Okay.
but they were just a group at
Yeah.
that, like, not yet. And then because I am a person who can read and learn and apply. So I was saying, oh, and then I read this today, and I understood this and blah blah. And they were like,
Mm-hmm.
all that from reading? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, man, well, we're not really hiring yet, but maybe you could. meet someone else. And then I actually took, but I also like, I was volunteering as well, which,
Okay.
which is another thing that I do in between work. It's an interesting thing, but when you're wanting something, giving usually releases it faster.
Mm.
So in that process, I was like, oh, what can I do while I'm not working full time in a career? And it was like, give. So I volunteered with some kids at an at risk school.
Yeah.
And they were telling me about the guy with Warner Brothers Promotions. And then he came to the school to speak to the class.
Wow.
And I met him. And then he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm volunteering. Like, what do you like? These kids are just like normal people. You just, they just need someone to believe in them, and and things like that. And he was like, hey, here's my card.
Right.
And I was like, great. And I met him. We met. I agreed to do a 90-day internship. And, basically I was sort of on my way. I didn't even really talk to them very much anymore because I was positioned with him, and we were doing a whole, their company had lots of artists and things going on. And, it was like breaking Heaven Campbell's record, and different things like that. So
Yeah.
I really just segue into, a really good opportunity. Dale was a mentor. Like, he was very like about teaching, and, he had come up under Sylvia Rome. So
Oh yeah.
it was an interesting, like, very fascinating time, but and it was a really cool time in Atlanta. It was late 80s, early 90s,
Okay.
because I'm the
Okay.
oldest than most. And
Yeah.
but it was like the cusp of like, oh, the face record is here. Other artists are starting to be attracted and move here. Bobby Brown had moved there and opened Triple B Records and things like that. So Atlanta was like becoming the Motown of the South at that time.
Got it. Got it. So when Dale took you under his wing, Tracy, what were some of the critical lessons that you learned while you were under his tutelage?
I would say most importantly, like, Dale was like really about teaching. Like, he was a teacher actually. And so it really was about like get like really what is like master yourself, like master the industry, learn about it, understand the charts and what that means and how that works. And just like he did allow me, which I didn't think about at the time, like, retrospect, it was just like, I do have great people skills, which is probably why I was a successful bartender and a waitress. And honestly, being able to have this thing to be able to deal with artists. Like, if I have to go somewhere and deal with the artist, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't starstruck or intimidated. And he really was like, I want to say the best thing that I learned from him as a leader was that basically the best leaders give people space to grow, and most importantly, to, if you want your team to use their gifts at their highest level, you have to give space for that.
Got got it. Um,
Mhm.
so after that point, 2002
Mhm.
rolls around.
Mhm.
You produced Book of Love with Treach and Robin Gibbons. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically after that, so after Warner Brothers, I had my son, and then I actually met some directors who were doing music video, or trying to do music videos, and needed someone who, one, knew how to get to artists or new artists that could help them get the deals.
Got it.
So I was doing that. And then one of the guys who did music videos, a guy named Jeff Bird, was trying to raise money for a film, The Book of Love, and his investors had fell out in the, like, but it was like, oh, but we're about to go into production in 1 week, and now I have no investor, so I can't make the movie. And so I actually was at Jermaine Dupri's office because I think they were considering giving him the money, and I was like, oh, that's gonna take them a long time. And I
Right.
saw his short, and I was like, this is really good. Like, this, we should give this guy a chance. So I actually went to some people who I was working with, um, and asked, like, would they want to invest, but knowing they would have to do it fast. And they were all like, yeah, we'll give them the money if you're going to go to California. Make sure it's not some people in a room with a phone on the floor faking, you know?
Right. Right.
So I went out and basically, you know, was bringing the money and was there watching and making sure that they were spending our money properly. And so that's how I segue into being able to produce that project with them and with the late gentleman named Carl Craig, who passed recently as well. But Carl Craig did, like, I'm going to get you sucker. Like, he done major projects. And so he knew how to work on a slim budget.
Okay.
It turned out to be good, and it was great. Like, Treach and I just worked together recently because it's just like, you know, the one thing about this business is if you do good work and you can foster great relationships that you continue throughout, you know.
Okay. Okay. You know, for those that are just joining the room, we are here with the visionary Tracey Baker-Simmons, executive producer of film and television, educator, uh, uh, just so many things. You are especially known for a project that you conceived of in 2010, being Bobby Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Actually, was it 2010 or oh God, what year is this? 2023. I think it was 2004. Yeah,
okay, okay,
I'm in 2005. Yeah.
okay, okay. Being Bobby Brown.
Hmm.
Okay. Walk us through how that project came about, Tracey.
So basically, at that time, I had moved back from California because after the Book of Love, I moved to California for a bit. I would come back from California because just to regroup. And so I went back to Atlanta, which was more like a home base for me. And my friend and I was starting a company together. And so we had raised funding and we were ready to start developing. And honestly, the dream was scripted television.
Yeah.
Um, but and reality television was still like very fresh. Like there was the Osbournes and I don't remember like really
Right.
tops. And so I would see them on the news all the time. And I was just like, oh, they don't care about cameras and they seem to like the attention.
Yeah.
So honestly, I was just like, oh, we should try to let them do a reality show because the Osbournes seemed interesting and seemed like that could be a good fit, like the urban version or whatever. And honestly, we did this thing where we paid 6 degrees of separation to see if we could get to them because we didn't know either one, Bobby or Whitney.
Got it.
And we were able to connect through a friend of our investor with Bobby's brother. And then Bobby's brother introduced us to Bobby. And then basically Bobby at first was like, what? And then that was short lived. Like literally within the time of us thinking of this idea, um, basically saying, oh, let's do this show about them and let's try, even though everyone's saying it was probably impossible. And then meeting his brother and starting to film, like
Yeah.
literally was a 30-day process.
Get out.
Yeah, because he was just like, if you want to do it, just go now. So I think that spontaneity of him and us being in position, having the money and just like saying, okay, I think I can figure this out. Like I've watched enough of this television to figure out what they're doing, to go forward and be able to pursue it and make the show. And basically we ended up just shooting the whole thing because in between, like I was shopping it and pitching it and people were just like, they're never going to finish the show, they're unreliable, you don't understand those two.
Yeah.
And so we just kept going. And our investor, thank God, he gave us the money to keep going, and we just filmed the whole thing. We filmed with them for almost like 5 months, and then we shopped it. And Bravo was willing to allow us to continue to keep the IP ultimately, but be able to license the project to them for a period of time.
Okay. What, in my house, Tracey, Whitney Houston, you remember how when we were growing up, your grandma used to have the Martin Luther King picture on the wall? You know what I'm saying? In my house is Whitney Houston, right? My wife loves Whitney Houston. And we all love Bobby Brown, right? What is the biggest misconception, Tracey, of those two? If you could share that with us regarding them.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that, I mean, I think people like, if you think, oh, that they're always doing drugs. Number one, on our show, they were not. The other thing I think is like people would think that Whitney would be a diva. She's not at all. Like that was all the brand, and that wasn't the person. That she's like very, very endearing and genuine and loved children. And then Bobby, the bad boy, that's a character too. Like he's really, he can be like temperamental per se, but most important, but he was still like he had gentleman qualities. And I do feel like they were just like young in spirit and just reckless from probably being in the business so young.
Mm-hmm.
But they were good people. They were genuine and good, and we had a great time. We had rough days sometimes, but overall we had a great time.
I think that one of the themes that continues to persist with people that didn't know them personally, of which you're one of the few that knew them both personally, is how they could have such a strong love for each other.
Mm-hmm.
From you witnessing that, their bond, it was a genuine bond, right?
I mean, think like Whitney Houston's from Newark, New Jersey, and Bobby was from Roxbury. So those
Right.
those two things are not very different,
Mhm.
you know.
Right. The
So
hood.
really it's like, yeah, they're hood. Like,
Yeah.
I would laugh when people would say like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you show Whitney that way," and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, I mean, Whitney being Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston being her authentic self was really just before its time, because now no one cares that Cardi B is loud and whatever she is, and she still gets
Yeah.
down with Bernie Sanders and whoever, and everyone gets to be their authentic self now. They're living out loud, and no one is looking at them and making them or forcing them to be someone else that they. So I think that's the biggest problem, is that people want to create these worlds or these images of these humans that far exceeds even probably any level of expectation that they could live up to.
Yeah.
And then that puts an additional piece of pressure on them, and life and everything else. And it just becomes like really like a explosion. But yeah, I think that they genuinely understood each other. They connected. They understood, like if you think about it, they both showed up with two characters, right? Whitney
Hmm.
had the character of Whitney Houston from The Bodyguard, and
Right.
Bobby had the character of Bad Boy Bobby. And they
Hmm.
meet each other and they're like, "Oh, you're not like that, and you're not like that. Oh my God."
Hmm.
We're just regular people wondering why these people want us to be these things. I remember one time I said to Bobby, I was doing something with him, and I was like, just be yourself. And he goes, be myself or Bobby Brown? And I was like, And he was like, it's fine. They probably want Bobby Brown. I know how to act like him.
Yeah. Dang, Tracy. That's so interesting. What? Okay, so being Bobby Brown was a cultural and is an enduring cultural phenomenon. But
Mm-hmm.
you didn't rest your laurels on being Bobby Brown.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, Tracy's also an Emmy nominee, which you got for Platinum House with my main man, Keith Sweat, Make It Last Forever. Andrew Hill, Beauty is Her Name. What was that like, Tracy?
That was so, and it was so good because it really was like, I don't know if a lot of people saw the show because it was on Peachtree TV, then on BET. But honestly, basically, it was right. It was like why groups break up, basically. So they were in a house and they were like dealing with their stuff with a real therapist, a guy named Dr. Aldrin Tart, who is now on another show, I think, as a therapist. But he was really, really good with them. But it was just like them sort of dealing with, and it was so interesting because they had all these things that they assumed about each other or they believed happened that didn't happen, and things like that. So I really loved it because there was a documentary done by a rock band called Some Kind of Monster. Because you also like, one thing I will say to people is like, when we're making television, even reality shows, we do a lot of research, or good producers do a lot of research. Um, and for me, like even with Being Bobby Brown, I watched Being John Malkovich and was like, oh, show the different sides of the person. Being Bobby Brown, being John Malkovich. And for the Drew Hill, I watched Some Kind of Monster, which was the same thing. It was these guys and it was just a documentary though, just documenting them during the process. And basically with these guys, I was like, oh, because Keith Sweat's idea was put these groups in a house together and see if they can get back together. A broken up.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I added the other elements like therapy, vocal training, which will make sure there's harmony. And
Right.
they had said they had never had vocal training. And so, and then they had to do these exercises of like, wearing, putting these masks over their eye, blindfolds, and basically singing and trying to figure out which person was out of tune, or also, and then once they really got their harmony together, we would remove a person and see how, and they would understand like, oh, you see how you miss that person, that because that is what makes it the whole. So it was really fascinating to just dig into basically developing, like, I think that I after I moved from Atlanta over 11 years ago now, I moved here and I took a job with a company helping to shape their development department because I wanted the opportunity to just immerse myself in development, because I started right out the gate with Being Bobby Brown. So I'm the president of the company. I'm the executive producer of the show. I'm I'm the
Mm-hmm.
this affairs, this, that. So I was just like, oh, I need a break. And I wanted to, and I do love the development process, especially the part where you really do get to like dig in and just do your research and think about the stories and how you want to tell the stories. And I think because I'm also a big lover of scripted television, I do often think like, oh, what if this was a movie or a scripted show? What would these characters be doing? And I don't force people or put things in their mouths, but I just use that sometimes as just markers to sort of navigate so that honestly, when the show does air, the audience doesn't know this is happening, but this is how they receive it and accept and understand when there's great story there and you've really like taken your time to sort how to do that properly and that the connective tissue lines up properly.
I feel like I need to be cutting you a check, uh, Tracey. On the real, I'm gonna keep it funky with you. I feel like I need to be cutting you a check because you are breaking it all the way down. And I know you saw KRS last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were
Oh,
break
yeah.
you were breaking it down to the very last compound. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? You went to Jared Creative, is that right?
Yeah, I worked there. Mm-hmm.
All right. One of the things that I really love that I found out researching about you is that the diversity of projects that you've shepherded in. You
Yeah.
have something for everybody. I've been watching your stuff all week long. Alaskan Women Looking for Love,
Yes.
hilarious. Boston's Finest ran for 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what I could find was amazing.
Yeah.
I killed my BFF.
Oh God, yeah.
Rock the Boat with New Kids.
With Donnie. Mm-hmm.
Tracey, how did these projects come? You know, because laymen out here, we want to know, how do these projects come to you? Like, who puts those on your desk?
Well, I mean, honestly, people do pitch. Donnie even pitched like his show, Rock the Boat, really was. They did that cruise anyway. So really, sometimes it really is a matter of saying, oh, this happens whether the camera is there or not. Now, what happens if we put the camera there? And how do we make it make sense to an audience? So that's always the easiest way to do a show. And look, the networks usually want to know, like, would that be happening if we didn't have those cameras there? Because they don't want us producing like things. So, and the Alaska Women Looking for Love, honestly, the owner, Jared, Seth Jarrett, just had this idea of, like, it really was like, what would be the most ideal fish out of water? So we were like, oh, if we took some women all the way from Alaska, which is damn near the North Pole, and put them on. I think the gift of us doing that show was like, for me, more so than, it was really like us casting, and we literally did the casting over like the computer, like we were just like, we emailed someone, they posted some stuff in some bars, then people emailed us back, and then we set up Skype interviews with them.
Really?
Oh, great, we have the people. So then we set people up to just start videotaping them. And then when it was really time to convince them to leave their homes in Alaska and come to Miami or go to Miami for a show, I had to go there. And, I like to tell people, I was like, I work with Whitney Houston, and then I can go talk to some young ladies in Alaska who never seen a black person a day in their life.
For sure.
And either way, I'm having fun, and they're always, and most of those girls on that show, even on Sprite Step Off, the girls from Arkansas, those young people are still to this day my friends on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm celebrating their marriages and their kids and everything about their lives, because you work with these people and you make these genuine, it's oftentimes genuine connections. And for a person like myself who comes from the South, it is genuine. Like, I do genuinely care about you. I am genuinely happy and congratulating you when you get married or having a kid. I do have sympathy if your parent passes away and things like that. So it's been an interesting life to be able to connect. I like to tell people, I connect with humans on the most human level.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we all have something in common. And it just takes a few seconds to figure that out. Like when I went to Alaska, instantly was like, the girl was like, I come from a military family. I was like, great, my stepdad's in the military. Where's the commissary? And she's like, got a commissary? And I'm like, of course.
Right.
Like, from there, you're in a conversation with a person, and you just basically made yourself equal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You the Christmas movie industry, Tracey. I was reading a Forbes article about the Christmas movie industry.
Oh my God, right?
Mm-hmm. Hallmark, a third of their advertising revenue, 350 million, comes from their Christmas movies. That you had a hit Christmas movie last year, Sugar Plum Twist.
Yeah.
Again, one of the things I love about you, you have stretched. You've done it all. You've done videos. You've done commercials. You've done reality movies of different types.
Yeah.
How did you get into that, Tracey?
Honestly, during the pandemic, one of my friends who works at a network, works at Lifetime, said, these companies all want to do Christmas movies. She was like, we should just come up with something. And I was like, okay, what can we come up with? We're just like messing around. It's the pandemic. What are we doing? Nothing. We're like chilling on our decks or whatever. And honestly, we just started talking about it, and we linked up with a writer named Cass Seegers, and we were like, what's the most Christmas thing? And we know we wanted to make it diverse, but my producing partner on that, she's Italian, but she loves Latin culture. So she was like, how do we make it Latin? And then we were like, okay, what can, and then Cass used to be a ballerina. So she was like the Nutcracker. That's the most Christmas thing ever.
For sure.
So, and then I said, hey, these channels, Middle America. So I set out to do what? Research. I said, let me find what's the most Latin place in Middle America. And we found this town in Virginia. And so we were like, okay, movie's going to be set here in Virginia. They're going to have, it's this theater. They're going to have their annual, um, basically, Nutcracker, but they're just going to do, we focused in on the Sugar Plum Fairy. And basically from there, just started developing the characters and putting it all together and deciding, like, this is the film, like, and then we pitched it to Hallmark. They loved it. They wanted to be in the diverse space doing diversity. And we knew that too because they had gotten like some bad press about not being diverse.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, let's strike now. They need something diverse. It needs to feel Christmas. All of those pieces came together and they were like, we want to make this movie. And we were like, amazing. So literally they commissioned it in January and we had the script done it took us till like almost June, but we were shooting in September and it was on the air in December.
That's amazing. And it did very well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it did. It was well received and it was very diverse. Like it was not just Latin, but it was just like a lot of like diversity in there. And
Hmm.
everyone got to play their own culture. That was a big deal for us. And
Yeah.
we didn't want to cast someone that could play Latin. We were like, no, someone has to be Puerto Rican because this is about a family's Christmas at Puerto Rico, that are Puerto Rican and their Christmas. Someone has to play. So we were very mindful about being diverse, but also honoring people's culture completely.
Right.
That was
Right.
to us, and we had the space. Like Hallmark gave us the space to do that, and we have a few other things that we're developing to pitch to them because we do. I mean, it's so magical to make a Christmas movie. The fake snow and the music and everything. It just puts you in a really good mood.
Yeah, absolutely. Who don't love Christmas, Tracy?
Yes,
You,
exactly.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the next thing is, Tracy, we've talked about all of the things that you've done,
Mhm.
but you are also emblematic of the working mom. How did you do it?
Oh God, I have a good support team, of course, family, my mom, my sisters and brothers. My son, sometimes he's like, Mom, you just left me everywhere, which isn't true. But if he want to remember it that way, good luck. But
Right.
I'm like, well, I don't think so because half the people in the business know you because you're on set underneath their feet or messing with something you weren't supposed to be touching.
Hmm.
So I did travel, like take my son with me a lot. I had a nanny for a while, for a big, chunk of time that really was supportive and helped because I was a single mom. Jacob's dad and I broke up. We split up. He was almost 2. So I was like a single mom and I didn't meet my current husband. My son was 9.
Mm.
So that was, and that was like very crucial period in my career,
Yeah.
but I just leaned into family mostly family and good, child care assistance. And my son was dyslexic. So I also had
Really?
like a school system of
Mm.
sorting how to navigate that properly so that he could actually be, they would teach to his strengths,
Got it. Got it.
and I was his number one advocate. And my son graduated college in 3 years, so I
Okay.
really was very involved at the same time. But I mean, once it's funny because I was saying to someone recently, I was like, because I'm a producer, and my friend was like, no, it's not because you're a producer. It's because of who you are that allows you to be a great producer. It's because you are compassionate. It's because you care. It's because you know how to connect with people on a human level. It's because you love story. all of those things is why I am a producer, as opposed
Yes.
to because I'm a producer, I'm those things. No, I show up with, I would show up with those things at a bakery. Like I'm just
Right.
gonna on the job with those things with the same level of, care and compassion. So
Uh, Amazing, Tracy. And for those that don't know, Tracy has also been a professor
mhm.
before at Emory. Is that right?
Yep, at Emory University I taught. And it was like not even called an adjunct, but they, interestingly enough, they sort of just created a class and a course for me to teach. Like they were like, "Can you teach?" Yes. Okay, we're gonna put together curriculum and we're gonna make this thing special for you in the business department. So I was blessed, and I ended up doing that for 4 years. Like, I would do it every fall semester for 4 years. It was very, and I loved it. You know, the funny thing about it is like growing up, I wanted to go to Emory.
Emory, nice.
Part of my, but I got more, a better scholarship situation at Memphis State. So, I went there because I didn't grow up wealthy. My parents needed me to get, a good scholarship to be able to afford school properly. And so I basically, but so ultimately, my dream of going to Emory was manifested as being at Emory and getting paid to be there as opposed to paying to be there.
Well, you know you're a bad girl if they create a course for you. Real talk. And honestly, man, the top universities, as you know, when they bring in, the titans of industry,
Mm-hmm.
the change makers, that is such a boon to students to be able to sit at the feet.
Yeah.
And so I know that your students really, really loved it. And
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and it was funny because they kept saying, "How many kids can you take?" And I was like, it was funny because they were like, "Because 50 kids want to be in that class." I was like, "Oh no, 30."
yeah,
Like it's only so much I can handle because I did want to be able to, give them attention and things like that. So,
Tracy, that's so dope. But as with everything that you've done, you didn't stop there.
right?
Tracy is an educator and has started a course that anybody can take,
Yep.
reality TV decoded, of which I am a student. I'm
Yes, you
proud
are.
to say, proud
Thank
to
you.
say.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's a fantastic course. But Tracy, what inspired you to do that?
You know what's one of my friends, Brandy Mitchell, she was just like, you need to just you're always teaching people. I always have internship program, and then when I had my company with the internship program, I gave them a book, and it was like, read these books, learn this dialogue, all the things that and more that I'm course, I literally was teaching my interns because I had this thing. I was like, I do not want you to leave here and someone say, "Oh, so who have you worked for?" And you go, "Tracey Baker-Simmons," and they're
Right,
like, "No, no, nothing."
right, right.
And you know what? Too, it also stems from you hear me explaining my career and everything, and I never talk about film school because I didn't go to film school. And
Hmm.
I didn't have like tons of film and television mentors. So I also was like, what if you just realize that you have a great idea or concept that you'd love to be able to develop and package and pitch, and what if you just want to be a part of the business and no, you don't want to go enroll in X, Y, and Z's films program and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, so I was just like, look, you can learn this. You really can. You can learn. I can teach you my process. I can share with you books to read. And, the bigger the platform, as the platform builds, we will be having live sessions. And then you just have access to a person like me who's a giver anyway. So I will be able to say, oh, this is happening or that's happening. And just like, if I could tell people anything, one of my favorite things to do is read the trades. I read Deadline. I read Variety. And a lot of people read because they go, oh, so and so's doing this movie. I'm reading the deals. Who making deals? And what are
Can
those?
I ask, can I interject and ask you something, Tracy? For those of us that are outside the industry, what are examples of the trades that you read?
So Deadline is one because it's online. So it's called Deadline, and basically it has a lot of all. It tells you a lot of deals that are happening. I read the Hollywood Reporter. Variety, I read that sometimes, but the Hollywood Reporter and Variety usually have very, very similar information. And then for reality television world, there's a newsletter or email that comes out called Real Screen, REAL Screen, and I do read it weekly and see like who's going where, who's working where, because these execs change a lot too. So I'm usually just watching that to see and to celebrate other people's wins. Like I like reading and celebrating other people's wins. That's good. It's good energy.
You know what, Tracy? You like inflation. You everywhere. You know, I was sitting around watching Love Match Atlanta.
Oh gosh.
Sitting around watching Love Match Atlanta with my girl Nisa Green down here in Atlanta, one of the big makeup artists down there. She was like, "You gotta watch Love Match Atlanta." I'm sitting there watching the credits. Who name I see flash across the screen, y'all? Tracey Baker-Simmons.
Oh God, yeah.
Tracy, let me. What I really want to ask is there something that you don't do?
I don't cook a lot. Husband will tell you that.
Around the way, y'all, we call this $1 million worth of game. You can mail your checks in care of Tracey Baker-Simmons to me, and I will make sure that she gets about 50% of them.
I trust you. I trust
Tracy, I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I appreciate you taking time out. What I want to know is several things. What's on your playlist when you just kicking back?
you. William Murphy, it's working.
Okay.
Because I mean, I be needing a little gospel every now and then. I'm sorry. And I'm trying to pull up my thing. Meek Mills, I do like him. He screams a lot, but he be saying he interesting things. And I like a little Drake. I am listening to the new Beyonce by force or choice. I can't decide, but it's everywhere. So I'm
Right.
listening to it. And honestly, Kanye.
Yeezy.
Yeah, let me tell you, I love sports, and I love Kobe Bryant, and my son's father was a baseball player, so of course. But I really am like I love LeBron James because it's focused ambition. I just love people who are just ambitious. They're focused. They're braggadocio. Like they're just like they will. Like I watch LeBron like will championships. Like I feel
Sure.
like his brain says we're gonna win, and it happens. And if you
Right.
think about like being a creator and being a filmmaker or a producer, that's what happens. You're like, I'm going to close this deal. I'm going to get this talent. I'm going to tell this story. And
Yeah.
it's that thing that makes it all land on the screen every time to me.
That's so awesome. What have you thought about the house direction that Drake and Beyonce took on these albums?
I love it, to be honest, because well, it's funny because I remember when Drake album came out and my son was like, I was reading everybody complaining, and then I went to like I was like, oh, okay. Everybody's like, what is this? Blah blah blah. And it's like people can't. They are artists. No artist paints the same thing every day. It changes
Right.
different. They use different colors, different strokes, and things like that. So why would they not be able to do that? And honestly, I'm like, when you're on the elevator or you go to, like, I go to Soho House in New York and things like that, that is the kind of music they are playing. So Drake and Beyonce are super smart to decide that they need to get some different publishing royalties by doing this. And honestly, we're all just catch up, you know?
You mentioned William Murphy. Again, those that don't know, I'm from Chattanooga. Tracy's from Chattanooga. Tracey from do you mind me saying?
Mm-mm.
Washington Hills. I'm from
Yeah.
Holiday Hills, right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously I assume grew like the rest of us grew up in church.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, my mom was very religious, like, church person.
Got it.
More than my grandmother. So I had a good balance. That's probably why I listen to William Murphy and Meat Mills. But I like the balance because I think that that's important too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Top 5 rappers, dead or alive, Tracey.
Oh no, I can't believe you make me do this. I
You
can't.
got to do it, girlfriend.
Oh my God. And I'm doing, like, I can't say the show that I'm working on right now that I've been on
Okay.
for 9 months, but it is something with hip hop. So now I'm like, oh, they're going to kill, like,
Okay.
everybody on that show is going to kill me if I don't say their name. Okay. Biggie, um, Nas, Jay-Z. Don't kill me, people. Oh God.
What's your favorite Biggie song, Tracey?
Juicy.
Okay. And what's your favorite Nas song?
One.
Okay. Well, you go deep. You go deep. You were
Well,
there with
huh?
what'd you say?
No, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I didn't produce that video, but I produced videos for Nas. Never for Biggie, but for Nas.
Okay. And you've done hundreds of videos. Is that right, Tracey?
Mhm.
Hundreds. Like not 10, not 30, not 37.
Right.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
What were some of your most memorable videos that you directed that we might know?
Brandy, I want to be down.
Stop playing, Tracey. Stop
See,
playing, Tracey. What? I love that video.
I know, so sweet. She's such a baby at that time.
Oh.
God, she was 14 years old. I was just like, this child.
Mm.
Oh God. Like, it was funny. Last night I was at the place where it was called 13. DJ Tommy Touch had a party for hip hop last night.
Yeah.
And I went to the event and KRS-One and Red Alert were there. And I was like, oh wait. I was like, and as soon as they played the song, it was like, whoop, whoop. I was like, oh wait. Then I was talking to Red Alert and I was like, do you remember me? I produced the Sprite commercial, Obey Your Thirst, with you and KRS-One in the ring with this song. And he was like, oh my God. And they were just like, and I was just like, oh wait, I'm hip hop history.
For sure. For sure. I mean,
Yeah. So
first of all, Tracey, if you didn't do nothing else, the I Want to Be Down video that's another cultural touchstone. I was in Atlanta. I went to Morehouse. So I came to Atlanta in 92.
okay.
Brandy dropped not
Yeah.
long thereafter.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I have to ask before you go. Big Luther or Little Luther?
Big Luther. I'm sorry. But I was born in 67, so you already know Big Luther.
Yeah. What's your
Yeah.
favorite Luther songs?
Oh God, a house is not a home. There's no one. Yeah, I love.
Sitting there.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you blow?
No,
Okay.
and don't even ask me to sing anything Whitney sings. Uh, I Believe in You and Me. That's my favorite. That's my husband's favorite Whitney record, so it gets to be mine because when he first met Whitney, we were at the Palm Restaurant in Atlanta. We were shooting the show. He came by, and I was like, "Oh, this is." And we weren't married at the time, and I was
Yeah.
like, "This is my boyfriend, and we're engaged." And then she was like, "Hello." I was like, "He loves you," and she was like, "He loves me, really? What's his favorite song?" And then he said, "I Believe in You and Me," and he like looked her dead in her eyes because he's a New Yorker, so they're not never afraid.
Yeah.
And then she sang that song to him. He cried. I was like, I can't believe you got that. And he was just like, oh my God. So
When did you know you were in love with your husband?
oh gosh. The first night we met.
What? Okay, okay.
I, I never get that picture out of my head. It was a blind, like it was technically a blind date. Like my best friend was like, had met him when I was living in LA, and they were all like, he's this really nice guy. And do you she was like, maybe you'll meet him, you know, when you come to town. And then when I moved back, she was like, oh, let's go to the restaurant with that guy who's the general manager. And I was like, okay. So he didn't even know, like, I was there scoping to see if I even thought he was cute or whatever. And he comes, I remember my husband's 6'4", and I just remember him walking across the restaurant to us at the bar.
Yeah.
And saying hello. And then I remember him, like, we stayed there, like we ate and we were drinking and he was hanging out with us. And I'll never forget him sitting there looking at me like this.
Okay.
Thinking,
Okay.
so I've made my own movie in my head. But yeah, and that was, and he's stuck like glue. And he is a really, really amazing person.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Tracey.
Mm-hmm.
You're in film and TV. What are your favorite movies, and what have historically been some of your favorite TV shows?
So it's funny. When I was doing Being Bobby Brown, and I didn't speak the language of reality television, I remember that they were asking me to do things, and I was like, no, I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to do a sit down interview. I don't want them to. Why are y'all? And then I remember that they said, oh, okay, sorry, the president of the network would like to have lunch with you. And I said, okay, that sounds kind of awesome, as opposed to, it was like they thought they were sending me to the principal's office, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I went to lunch with her, and she said, what do you watch on TV? And I said, The Wire. She said, that's the problem. She was like, this is the problem. You watch real TV. And I was like, yeah, story is important. And I'm not doing that stuff you guys are trying to make me do. So I will say that still to this day, definitely one of, my all-time favorite television shows. Recently in the television space, I like this last season of This Is Us. I like Ted Lasso. That's like so interesting, and like one of my friends talked me into watching it. And then Yellowstone, really like, I like good TV. Like I like good story. I like characters with layers, and all of those amazing things that I was growing up. The first movie I ever saw in the movie theater was Purple Rain.
We ain't even gonna talk about the purple one, Tracey.
Hello. And
Or we gonna talk about the purple one? Did you ever meet Prince?
no, I saw it on Highway 58.
Okay. Up there. On yeah. Up there by the Waffle House.
Yes, exactly.
Tracey, did you ever meet Prince?
Yes, for a very short time, but yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, he was being rude. So
He was being rude?
He was just like, I don't talk to just anyone. Like, he doesn't talk to people. This and that.
Right.
My boss is just like, you have to ask what he wants to eat. And it was just like, me. I was just like, look, you have to say it to me. Like, I'm not gonna allow someone to be like dismissive of me as a human.
Okay.
So that was my experience. I don't know if he loved me for defending myself, but that's what it was. So
Tracey, I'm gonna tell you right now. I mean, everything you name is the bomb. Avon Barksdale, Stringer Bell, Prop Joe, name it.
Exactly. I love Jamie Hector. He's such a good actor.
Oh man, Marlo.
Yes.
Tracey. There's a scene with Method Man and Prop Joe. Okay, all right. I'm not gonna hold you, Tracey. 2 books that you recommend people read, and I'm gonna let you go.
I would say What a Producer Does. That was the first book I ever read, and I love it, and I still love it. And I was looking today at my books because I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I'm not promoting a Christian book, but a guy named Andy Stanley out of Atlanta wrote a book called Visionary.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that book is a really good book, especially for like entrepreneurs or just in this time period where we're all just coming off the pandemic and just sort of rethinking life. I do think that that book has a lot of vision and insight. And then if you find yourself in a situation in life where you feel like you hit rock bottom, another book that I recommend that I feel saved me was called Failing Forward, and another book called Too Busy Not to Pray.
Okay. Okay. You also mentioned Hitmen earlier. Who wrote Hitmen?
You know what? Who wrote that? I don't know, but it's funny. I was doing something the other day and I saw that book in someone's house too. If you just type, it's easy to find. Like Hitman, it's just I
I'll
can't
look it up.
remember it, but that's like tells you all that makes you understand that empire is rooted in truth. Because it's like it just explains like the mafiosa of the industry, payola, and things like that, which was important to know, coming into it. So,
Okay. Final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
oh wow. Honestly, I still have it. I always say I want to be the head of a major studio. Or I want to definitely run a major studio that and I often think like, what's my why? Like, why do I always want that? And it really is because I'm one of those people, like people text me or email me and they're like, I have a show idea. Can I pitch you? Can I talk to you? And sometimes like I can do something and sometimes I can't. But I just know what it feels like not to have someone even like you think they're so above that won't even listen to you.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
I just want to be in a space and place where like I'm really good with inciting like I can look at a person and be like, oh, you should be this or you should do that. I have that gift. And I just want the ability to like let people have an opportunity to walk in a room, be able to pitch, and if there's something there that's viable, be able to give them the space and the resources to see that to fruition. It's life changing. It's just so phenomenally life changing. So part of why I wanted to put out the course was, okay, let me teach, because I can't just continue to give it away.
Hmm.
So I wanted to teach, but then I also want to be able to be a resource.
Hmm. And that is the final word. Please follow. First of all, I just want to thank you for spending time with us on a Friday night.
No
Uh,
problem.
please,
Thank you for having me.
please follow her at T Baker-Simmons. Also follow her course at Reality TV Decoded.
Yeah.
It is the bomb. If you want to get into reality TV production, it is a master course by the master. Tracey, you have a blessed weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank,
And everybody, thanks for tuning in.
thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.